So we've been speaking about baptisms and the necessity of baptism, and I just want to make a couple of observations based upon what Brother Douglas just mentioned about the baptism of Christ and why he got baptized and what it was symbolizing. So I think we all acknowledge that Jesus hadn't sinned, and the reason that he got baptized was what? Why did Jesus get baptized, Sister Ruth? You're about to write the answer down and I'm asking you for it. I'm sorry.
Because he was starting on his mission.
He was starting on his mission. Yeah? Brother Douglas, you were saying?
I was saying at the baptism of Christ, then we see the proclamation, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He's anointed. There's a work that he needs to do, but the path that is in front of him is a difficult one because it involves persecution. It's like he's being baptized into persecution, because from that point on, he becomes a marked man. Because now he's been pointed out.
I assume you can't wait for that experience. You're looking forward to it? I'd never seen it from that perspective, that's why I'm asking. I find that interesting, that he gets baptized and now he's a marked man. So I like that idea. So you must have thought about that for some time, I take it. So one thing I do want to talk about, has anybody else got any thoughts on baptism? David? You're going to be a marked man? Thank you, brother.
Jesus was a marked man before his baptism, but I think it made it even more pronounced, even more marked. Because it was not acknowledged before. The 18 years from 12 to 18, he's studying and all this, and they disagreed with him, but I think at the time it just kind of made a mark.
Okay. Anyone else? Sister Wendy, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I've always been taught that it was because he was being an example for us.
I think that's what Brother Douglas was inferring, that he was an example, but he didn't quite say it that way, although he said that he was a marked man and he wants to be a marked man now as well, I guess. Brother Douglas, he's headed for that direction. So, something that, just an observation, not many people speak about, I'm not sure why, when we talk about baptism. Have we all been baptized, by the way? Who has not been baptized here? Ever? I mean, like Adventists, baptized Adventists. So we've all been baptized. So, Sister Nish, you've been baptized, yeah? When you got baptized, what were you getting baptized into? Was it like to be a marked woman, to be persecuted? What were you getting baptized into, whenever that was?
Either my first or my second.
Either one will do. We'll go with the second one.
No. It was, for me, it was because I had left the church and I had come back and
Come back where?
to the church.
So it was marking that you're coming back into the church.
Yes.
And the first time?
The first time is because I was 12 and all my friends were doing it.
And what were they doing?
Getting baptized
Into...
the church.
So it's all about getting baptized into the church. Yeah? Sister Daniela, you've been baptized? What did you understand that meant?
I was publicly declaring that I am now in a relationship with Jesus.
That you're in a relation, and when you say a relationship with Jesus, is that just like some individual thing?
Yes, that now I have stopped living the life that I was living before in the world, and now I am following what Jesus tells me to do.
You weren't following him before?
Not really.
Like a month before, 2 months before, 6 months, you weren't listening to him? You just decided that on the day.
No. There was a process. Yeah.
And so on the day of baptism, you started listening.
So no. It was just they just arranged it on another day, but I started the relationship earlier than that.
Okay.
So according to the church, they just appointed a particular day for us to go for the baptism. But it would have been nice to have had it on the day that I decided to. Yeah.
So the day you decided to commit, you wanted to do it then and there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to do it that way. They wanted to.
Yeah, I had to go through some studies to know what I'm getting myself into.
Okay. And you disagree with that?
I'm sorry?
You disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that, but because for me it was a public declaration, so that I'm now not on this side, I'm on this other side. So I would have done it on the day that I said, now I'm going to this side.
Okay, so now we're going on to sides. What side was...
The side of Christ and the side of the devil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm just going to say, my rebaptism, I really wanted to follow Christ, but I had an understanding that getting baptized I would have some supernatural experience that would enable me to do that. So I had a misunderstanding of what would happen at baptism. I just don't know if other people experienced that. And it didn't happen. I was disappointed.
Oh, it didn't happen?
No, I thought it was going to be super easy. Everything was going to fall into place, and I wasn't going to have to try, and I wouldn't struggle, and that wasn't the case at all.
So you found out, like Brother Douglas, you was a marked person. Okay. Should have spoken to him before, he would have set you straight. Welcome. We're having a discussion on baptism. Would you like to join? Could you tell me who baptized John the Baptist?
Who baptized?
John the Baptist.
Oh, who baptized John the Baptist?
Yes. I was going to say your father's doing well.
Forgive me. Who baptized John the Baptist?
No?
John the Baptist baptized Jesus.
Yeah, so John the Baptist, we said that just before you came in, John the Baptist baptized Jesus. Sister Catherine, who baptized John the Baptist? Sorry? Nobody. So he didn't get baptized. He was a baptizer, he didn't get baptized. At least, no, who could have baptized him?
One of his disciples,
One of his disciples,
I presume.
presume. So, okay, so we don't know.
But if I were to make a guess, yes.
He said he wanted Jesus to baptize him. Jesus said, no, I need baptism.
I remember that. Yeah.
So that means he wasn't baptized before Jesus.
Yeah.
And after it was a bit late, I would suggest.
You don't know that. He was baptized with the Holy Spirit. He just didn't get baptized by Jesus.
If you would say, I only want you to baptize me, people do that, say, I want you to baptize me, and he said, I'm not doing it. So he said, oh, I'll get Peter to do it or something. You think?
Possibly.
Brother?
He was anointed since he was in the womb, because when Mary went to see Elizabeth, he jumped from the belly of his mom.
Okay, so you're saying he doesn't need to be baptized because he's anointed from birth. In fact, he's anointed from conception.
Even before birth, so,
Yeah, when he's in the womb, he's anointed.
but he was baptized out of the womb. But I never think about that before.
Okay? So, we've spoken about baptism. There's no evidence that John the Baptist ever got baptized. What were they getting baptized into? What was that baptism a symbol of? Sister Effie?
They were getting baptized into the kingdom of Christ.
Into the kingdom of Christ. Yeah? So baptism we could, this chair's there if you prefer, if it's harder to watch it. Baptism was a symbol of what? That they're entering into the kingdom of Christ. Is that what you said? Yeah. You agree with that, Sister Ruth?
I guess I could add to that. So baptism, in the context of John the Baptist, he was preparing a way for Christ. His message was repent from your sin, for the kingdom of God is at hand. So he was making the way straight.
Which way is that?
The way in terms of
The way into?
in terms of realizing, helping them realizing that the condition of their heart, that they're sinful, that they have things that would hinder them from receiving Christ. Thank you.
Okay.
Worldliness. He was bringing them the attention.
So when you said way, he's showing them the way. The way to what?
No, he's not really showing them the way. He is preparing the way for Christ to come.
He's preparing the way.
Following the mountains. And the mountains in this instance would be their worldliness.
So when he's preparing the way,
Yes.
for Christ or for them?
No, for Christ.
Where's Christ going? That he's preparing the way for him.
So it's like an illustration of in the olden days.
Just tell me where Christ is going. That he's preparing the way.
Where Christ is going.
Because the illustration you're about to use
Yeah.
is that person's going somewhere. So where's he going? That he's going to prepare the way.
Into their hearts to be received by them. Into their hearts.
So there's a way. The end place is the heart. And John the Baptist is preparing the way for Jesus to go down this path into someone's heart. And Jesus can't get to the heart without the preparation that John is making.
Yeah, he was bringing to their attention that the way has been overgrown by weeds, by worldliness, that the focus is on earthly things and not on heavenly things. And if they have an honest heart, they will be able to realize that. And with the workings of the Holy Spirit, they will
Okay.
enter into baptism.
So when Jesus gets to the heart,
Yes.
what does he do there?
He is the king of their hearts now.
Okay, so we're going back to that. So when he gets into the heart, he'll sit on a throne and he'll be the king. So Christ wants to be the king. So baptism is a symbol of the kingdom of Christ, or Christ being the king of the individual. Or we could say it the other way, the individual being a subject of the kingdom of Christ. Yeah? You okay with that, Sister Danielle? Are you okay with my brother? Baptism is a symbol that you're entering into the kingdom of Christ, because John the Baptist is going to cut down all of these weeds. It's going to straighten the path, and all these weeds are your sins. When you stop all the sins, then Jesus can come and reign in the heart, sit on the throne, and he's the ruler. Yeah? You okay with that, Sister Rachel? So baptism is a symbol of the kingdom of Christ. Is it okay that if I add one more word, Christ is on this path and he's going to, there's a door here. Is there a door to our heart? Is that right? I knock at the door. So there's a door here, and Jesus needs to do what? Come in. He needs to come in or enter. If I can put enter. So baptism is a symbol of entering the kingdom of Christ. The way Sister Ruth did it is Christ is entering into our heart, and I've just taken that the other way around and saying we're entering into the kingdom of heaven, because that's what Sister Effie said, kingdom of Christ. So we're entering into that kingdom. Christ isn't entering into that kingdom, we're entering into it, or he's entering into our hearts. It's the same thing, if we're okay with that. Yeah? Brother Douglas, if baptism is entering into the kingdom of Christ, who is Christ? Just with what Sister Ruth was telling us. What role or position is Christ?
And Christ is
I'll give you a choice.
yeah, give me a choice.
Where is Christ? Which role has he got? Is he at the bottom, in the middle, or at the top? Is he low class, middle class?
I'll say high class.
High class is aristocracy? The big famous people? Yeah? So, the kingdom of Christ, what role has Christ got? What position is he at?
In our heart, it should.
No, in the kingdom. It's the kingdom of Christ. What role does he have when we think about it in this term? The term that Sister Ruth said. You said he's at the top.
Yes.
What's the top job? The top position in society, in a kingdom?
Is a king.
King.
Yes.
So it's the kingdom of the king. Okay? So he's the top person. Who's the top person in the universe? God. So can we just change that to God? That's what I wanted to do.
Yes.
Yeah? Kingdom of Christ, kingdom of God. Everyone okay with that? Sister Effie? So baptism is a symbol of the king, of entering into the kingdom of God. Who's getting baptized? Brother David, who's getting baptized? In the story, real life. 2,000 years ago. Who's getting baptized?
What was the story? I missed that part.
John the Baptist. He never got baptized. Our brothers told us that he was anointed from the womb, so he didn't need to get baptized. Christ was baptized. Sister Wendy said, because of an example. He set an example for us, because he didn't need to get baptized either, did he? Because he was anointed from the womb too. But he does it as an example. And Sister Ruth said, there's this way which is overgrown. Christ, the King, cannot get through that way to his end's journey, to the journey's end. He needs a servant to go before him to cut and clean everything out. There's little ruts in the road. I don't know what you call them, ditches or something, potholes. He fills them up so it's a smooth path into the heart. And here he's going to reign because he's king. You okay with that? All of that? Who's getting baptized? If you went to Matthew or Luke, they're the places you'd normally go to. Chapter 3.
Jesus was one who was trying to get baptized, right?
Jesus got baptized. He's not the only person.
I know John baptized some disciples.
Yep, so the disciples. Sister Daniela, who's getting baptized?
The Jews.
The Jews. Exclusively the Jews. No Gentiles are getting baptized. No one's getting. It's only the Jews. So we've got. We'll put the Jews here. Okay. So the Jews are getting baptized, and baptism is what? A symbol of entering the kingdom of God. So, Brother Douglas, you started off with all of this. Tell me, before they get baptized, okay, you're queuing up to get baptized, and when you get baptized, what's happened? You've
entered into the kingdom.
Okay, and you're a
Jew.
You're a Jew. So 10 minutes before, you're a Jew. After baptism, you're a
Jew.
Okay, so you're a Jew, and tell me, what are you part of before you got baptized? Because when you got baptized, you're part of the
Kingdom of God.
So what are you part of before you got baptized?
Kingdom of Satan.
You're part of the kingdom of Satan. Yeah? So before baptism, you're part of the kingdom of Satan. And you want nationality? You're a Jew. Do you agree with that, my brother? Do you agree with that? Before they got baptized, they're queuing up to get baptized, they're the part of the kingdom of Satan. What kingdom are they part of then?
Because they were used and they had a covenant before that since the Mount of Sinai, but they depart from God. But the only thing was then that they didn't, they didn't accept Jesus when Jesus came.
Jesus hasn't come yet. Jesus hasn't. Jesus is behind you. You're in front of him, so you haven't rejected Jesus. John has been baptizing for 6 months, so he's baptized a lot of people. Jesus isn't on the scene, so there's no acceptance or rejection of Jesus. What kingdom are you before you get baptized? So you said they entered into covenant at Mount Sinai.
The Israelites, yes, God confirmed the covenant.
Can we change that from Jews to Israelites? You okay that they're Israelites? So you're saying the Israelites were part of the kingdom of Satan?
No, let me take that back. They were not part of the kingdom of Satan. They were part of God's plan. It was through them that
Part of God's plan?
yes.
Cornelius, the Gentile, he was part of God's plan. Everyone's part of the plan. I'm asking you, what are they part of?
The Jewish were the chosen one.
They're the chosen one now.
People, God's people.
So they're part of the kingdom of...
The kingdom of Satan. Okay, they depart from God, but since the beginning they were not.
Sister Effie, this was your model. Baptism is a symbol of entering into the kingdom of God. So before you're baptized, what are you part of?
You're not part of the kingdom of God.
So you're not part of the kingdom of God. How many kingdoms are there? There's only 2 kingdoms. So it's God or Satan. So you're an Israelite and you're part of which kingdom?
If you are not part of the kingdom of God, you're in the kingdom of Satan.
So you agree with Brother Douglas, who doesn't agree with himself.
Yes.
So you explain. Well, what's your name, my brother?
Eber.
Eber?
Eber.
Eber?
Iber.
Iver?
Iber.
Iber. Okay, so I'm wrong to say Eber. Eber. Iber. You disagree with Brother Iber?
What is the Bible?
He said they're part of the kingdom of God.
I disagree.
He's got proof text for that as well.
Okay. We're told that by the time Christ was coming, the Jews had apostatized very badly.
Okay, so they're in apostasy.
Yes, and when you're in apostasy, you're not in the kingdom of God, so you must be on the other side.
So let me ask you a question. God forbid this ever happened. You're happily married, and next year your relationship gets strained. You see a man and you go into an affair with him, and you commit adultery. Are you married?
On paper, but
No, I mean in real life, are you married?
yes.
On paper, in practice,
Yeah.
in any, literally, you're married.
The moment you do that, you're not married anymore.
You're not married anymore? You're not?
Absolutely not. Because the meaning of marriage is to be in a marriage with somebody. So once you break that covenant, there's no marriage anymore.
Brother David, do you agree with that?
Sorry, what's his married again?
You commit adultery, you're still married after adultery.
You don't marry because that is what makes it adult. Well, way to be adult.
Because that's what makes it adultery, an adulteress.
That's right.
Otherwise you wouldn't be an adulteress anymore.
Adultery because you are married.
Yeah?
Well, yes.
Brother James?
I was just going to say, Jesus said that in the beginning it wasn't so. It was because of the hardness of their hearts that Moses said they could get a paper of divorcement.
So they're still married? Great, you're still married? Bad marriage?
You're
Sure.
married, you're still married.
I guess I'm looking at it in the sense of what marriage means. If you're married to somebody, you would not go and do that.
Lots of people would.
Well, yes, yes. Ideally, you wouldn't,
Mhm.
right?
And if you did?
If you did, if you're saying technically, yeah, you still.
Okay, so if you break the covenant, I'll give you another example then. You're a parent, and even though your children didn't sign up, they're in a covenant with you. Yeah? So the covenant that you signed up with your children is you would take care of them, and you would love them and cherish them. Okay? Next week, you get really angry, and you get a stick and you hit your child and you break their arm. Perhaps you didn't mean to, but you were angry and you broke their arm. Have you broken the covenant that you made with them? To take care of them, to protect them and shield them? Have you broken that covenant? Are you no longer their parent? You're still their parent. So breaking covenants doesn't mean
Bad parent.
you're a bad parent, yeah. But breaking covenants doesn't mean that it absolves you of that relationship.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. I think I was thinking about it.
Solomon, he's the king of what nation?
Israel,
And Israel serves which God? The God of heaven. So as soon as they stop doing that, are they no longer... I'll switch the framework, I should have asked it a second ago. They're God's children, they're his representatives on earth. As soon as they start worshipping idols, what do they become then?
they're,
Vagabonds? I mean, what are they?
so the way I'm thinking, I would have said that because of their actions now, in theory, in practice, they've become children of Satan, but in theory, they're still children of God, because that hasn't changed. I don't know if you understand
Yeah.
why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking.
I do, I'm just trying to adjust your thinking.
I will allow.
Daniel chapter 2. No, Daniel chapter 11. Daniel chapter 11, let's turn to verse 45. Daniel 11, verse 45. He shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Okay, we there? I'll read it again. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. There's a lot of symbology there. Daniel 11, verse 45. The last part I didn't read. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one shall come and help him. So, if you're going to come to your end, what does that mean if you've come to your end, Sister Wendy? What does end mean? Died. So he's died. This person's died, and no one helped him. It doesn't tell you exactly why he died or what happened. We'd have to do a bit of digging. But I want to suggest that he died in a fight. He got into a fight with someone, and he didn't get enough help and support in this fight. Are we okay with that? So the reason why I say he got into a fight is if you drop back 6 verses to verse 40, this same person is in another fight. He's in a fight, and in that fight, it says in verse 40, there were chariots and horsemen that helped him. So everybody knows what a chariot is, yeah? It's not a taxi. It's an instrument of war. And the horseman is not just some escort, it's a cavalry. You can show that if you see the symbology as it's used through the scriptures. So in verse 40, it talks about assistance of a military force that helps this person. It's the same person all the way through. And if we went to verse which verse shall we go to? We'll go to verse 43. Verse 43 talks about having power. So he gets all the money. He has power over the treasures of gold and silver and over all the precious things of Egypt. And then it says, and the Libyans and Ethiopians shall be at his steps. So we're not doing a Bible study, a deep one at least. What does it mean if it says someone is at your steps? What would that mean to you, Sister Daniela, if I said someone's at your steps? Not sure? Sister Ruth?
I guess I would say somebody's nearby you, either physically or
So they're nearby you.
aggravating you in some kind of way.
Sorry? Aggravating you, did you say? Where'd you get aggravation if they're at your steps?
It's a preconceived idea.
Okay, that's fine. I like that answer. Let me rephrase it without going into the Hebrew or Greek. Let's just rephrase it. When it says at his steps, I want to change it to mean keep step with him. They're keeping step. Does that sound reasonable, Sister Nelly? At his step, keep in step. So if I said these people were keeping step, what would that mean to you, Brother Douglas? Keeping step.
It's like a father walking behind his child and he's keeping step with him, he's learning how to walk. If they need help, you're right there.
Okay, so it's a family all walking together, and the father is sort of strong-willed, and he's walking, and he tells his family, what do you have to do? Keep up. Keep up with me. And the example that Brother Douglas is correct. I'm just giving it a slightly different way. And what does the son do? He's looking at his father's feet, and he keeps on hopping. So why? Because he wants to keep in step. He wants to actually keep in step with his father, and the stride is longer than his. So every few steps he sort of jumps across. So when he does the left, so he's keeping in step. Who keeps in step? Who keeps in step with someone? Soldiers do. So it has the concept right there. We've seen it in verse 40, military strength. We've seen in verse 43, the Ethiopians and the Libyans are keeping in step. So you can see, we could prove this, but we're not. I'm just trying to use the words that are already there. They're keeping step with this person. And by the way, this person, if you look to verse 40, is a king. Halfway into the verse, it says, the king of the north. So you've got a king, and who keeps in step with the king? It's his army does. Yeah? So you've got a king, he comes with his cavalry and chariots, and then it says the Libyans and the Ethiopians. So you know who his army is now. The army is the Ethiopians and the Libyans. And they're keeping in step with him. So when would they keep in step? When would a king stand before his army and they're all keeping in step? When would that happen? Sorry? When you're going into battle. So verse 43, you know that this king is going into battle. You okay with that? Everybody fine? You okay with it, Sister Rachel? Yeah? He's already had a fight, and now he's got his Libyans and Ethiopian soldiers, and they're all keeping in step with him, and they're marching to battle. And where would the battle be, Sister Catherine? No? We did this backwards. Which verse did we go to? So where they're going to battle? They're going in between the seas. There are some seas somewhere, and they're going between the seas to have a fight. And what happened in that fight, Sister Denise? He lost the fight. So when it says no one was there to help him, who was supposed to help him? The Libyans and the Ethiopians. His army. His army is there supposed to help him, and they don't. So he gets perhaps wounded in battle, and instead of them gathering around, what did they realise? They've lost, and what do they all do? They flee and run home, and he's left there to perish all by himself. No one's going to help him. Yeah? So he has a fight with someone, and where is the fight taking place? Sister Denise, where's the fight taking place? Which verse are you in?
45.
Okay. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas.
That's where the fight is?
Between the seas. And where's he planting everything?
In the tabernacle.
Not in the tabernacle.
Between the seas and the glorious holy mountain.
So where's he planting everything?
In the mountain.
In the mountain. So where's the fight? In the mountain. So he's having a fight in a mountain, and he loses. He loses the fight. We can see that. So he's fighting against someone in a mountain. All good with that? Okay. So this is Daniel 11, the end of the book. In fact, chapter 11 and 12 are the same prophecy. There's not really any difference between it. It's just a seamless one prophecy. So I'm going to say this is the last prophecy in the book of Daniel. What's the first prophecy in the book of Daniel? Where's that found? Sister Wendy? Daniel chapter 2. So in Daniel chapter 2, you have a statue. No, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that. Because you know what I'm about to do. And even Brother Marco didn't laugh. You're terrible. I was over there and I didn't see how to do it. No, that's not how he said to do it. He gave some proper instruction. I heard him. Okay, so Daniel chapter 2 is this. Anything else in Daniel chapter 2, my brother? Anything in, what else is in Daniel chapter 2? Is there a statue? Yeah, so it's the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. So that's the dream, this statue. Anything else in Daniel chapter 2?
Oh, that's if you go to prophecy that take all the frame time from the history of the world, since Babylonian to the coming of Jesus. So.
Babylon to literal Babylon. I call it literal Babylon to mystery Babylon. Anything else in chapter 2? Oh, that's all here. That's all here. Anything else?
Huh?
Anything else?
Like what?
I don't know. If I told you what else, I'd give you the answer. I want you to give me the answer. I'm testing you. How much you know?
How much I know?
Yeah.
Just ask me.
You've given me all of that. Anything more? Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome. I've got that. Anything else in chapter 2?
Yeah, when Daniel revealed the dream to the...
Okay, so he explains it to him. Anything else? Okay, you in Daniel 2 or Daniel 11?
Well, I'm in Daniel 11 now.
Go to Daniel 2 then.
Tested,
Go to Daniel 2. He gets tested in Daniel 1.
his faith was proven.
That's Daniel 1.
Okay.
So we're in Daniel 2. Let me see if we can find if there's anything else in Daniel 2.
What verse of Daniel?
I'm finding it myself. I'm not very fast. Okay.
Oh, the worshipping?
Not the worshipping. So I'll go to the end of the chapter.
Okay.
And so this is a statue. You okay with that? The statue or the image, he calls it the image, which is a statue.
Yeah.
So there's a statue in the story, and I'm asking, is there anything else? And if you go to verse 45,
Verse 45.
chapter 2, tell me if there's anything else in the story besides a statue or an image.
Oh, the stone that was cut on the mountain without hands and hit the...
Okay, so you knew that, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a statue,
Yeah.
okay? And there's a mountain,
Yeah. And a big stone was cut without hands.
okay?
And hit the statue.
You said big stone or little stone?
Just destroyed.
Okay? So we're okay that there's a mountain
Yeah.
and there's a statue,
Yeah.
yeah? And this statue is a symbol of what?
Of the
Which-
world, a different system through ages that have
So
been,
kingdoms,
kingdoms that have been oppressing God's people and living on this earth until then.
okay? So it's the kingdoms that do what? Oppress
God's people.
God's people. So it's the kingdom against God's people.
If you look history, all the great powers on this earth through history have oppressed God's people.
Good. And it lists 4 of them.
Yeah.
So it's the kingdom against God's people.
Well,
So-
at the end there is 10 because it's a mix of clay and iron.
Good. It's all in there.
Opposed to the world government.
So if you're against somebody, what are you going to do with them? You're going to fight.
Yeah.
So this kingdom, this statue is fighting against God's people.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm going to change it because it's the kingdom against God's people.
Yeah.
But you said that the Jews were Israel and they weren't the kingdom of Satan. You said they were the kingdom of God before baptism.
They were in a spiritual adultery, but they were chosen by God.
They were in adultery.
Spiritual adultery.
So Sister Effie now agrees that if you commit adultery, you're still married.
yes.
She agrees with that. Now, so we're okay.
You're an adulterer, but you're still married.
Yeah. So they're also the kingdom of God. So I'm going to change this. They fight. I'm going to say this kingdom is against God's
Yeah, God's people.
kingdom.
God's kingdom.
Because his people are the kingdom, yeah? Okay, so he's going to fight against God's kingdom.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yes.
Good. Daniel 11, Sister Daniela. There was a king, and what was he doing?
He was fighting. There was 2 kings that were fighting each other.
Verse 40, there's a king. He fought with one person. Then in verse 43, he gets his army and he's going to fight where? On a mountain. So he's going to go fight on the mountain in the last story. And what's he doing in this story? Because my brother said, this mountain, there was a stone that was cut out of it. And what does the stone and the statue do?
Destroyed.
They have a...
What is the stone?
the stone and the statue do? What do they do with each other?
They collapse, they destroy.
So he destroys him,
Yeah.
so they have a fight.
Fight, yeah.
So is there anybody to help the statue
No.
when it fights against the stone that come out of the mountain?
No, it will be gone.
It's going to be gone. So can we see Daniel 2 is the same story as Daniel 11? They're the same story.
Yeah, there is a parallel.
Yeah? You've got a mountain and you've got a king. In this case, it's the story or the kings of the earth. So Daniel 11 is just a photograph, or someone called it a snapshot. It was a snapshot right back here at the end. But this thing has been going on for a long time. Okay? So this kingdom is against God's kingdom. And God's kingdom is here. Yeah? How many kingdoms of God is there? How many kingdoms of God are there? Just one kingdom. Just one kingdom? Sister Effie, one kingdom? Yes? Okay, so if there's one kingdom, there's a mountain and there's a stone. Which one is God's kingdom? I'll ask another question. How many stones have we got? We've got a big one and a small one. So we call this a rock, a big stone,
The big one.
but it came out.
Yeah.
So before it was part, but then it came out. So you started off with, how many did you start off with? One. And how many did you end up with? Two. So you've got two.
Yeah, but God's kingdom is not even the mountain or the rock.
This is not God's kingdom?
No?
Whose kingdom is this?
But that's the worldly kingdom. The Satan kingdom, actually.
This is Satan's kingdom.
Yeah.
That's not Satan, is it?
No.
That's his kingdom.
That's his throne. That's his...
Good. And this mountain, this isn't God.
No.
This is God's
Kingdom?
God's kingdom.
Yeah.
I'll give you a verse for it. Go to Psalms 48. Psalms 48. We're in Psalms 48, and we're going to talk about two different things. The first thing we're going to talk about, are we all there? Is the Lord. Are you there, my brother?
Yeah.
Yeah? So it says the Lord.
48, what verse?
1.
1, okay.
Great is the Lord. So God is great. Greatly to be praised. We should praise Him. Where do we praise Him? In the city of our God, in the mountain of His holiness. So is the mountain God?
No, makes sense.
No. The mountain isn't God, but the mountain is the place where we worship God. And where do we worship God? In His kingdom or not in His kingdom? In His kingdom. So the mountain, and it talks about the city of God, which is His capital. So the mountain is where you worship God. So God must be in the mountain. So God is here controlling this mountain, and Satan is here controlling this statue. Satan's kingdom, God's kingdom. So the mountain is not God, it's His kingdom.
It's where He settled. Huh?
Good, it's where He settled. So when you began the story, it's just a mountain. One. Sometime, a stone comes out, and now you've got a mountain and a stone. So you've got two. You can see that? Mm-hmm. So the kingdom of heaven now is in two parts. Straight out Daniel 2, not making anything up, just going exactly with the imagery. And we saw that the mountain was the kingdom of heaven. So this is the kingdom of heaven, and now it's in two parts. Why do you have a problem with that?
No.
Oh, you don't?
What is the little stone means then according to this?
Okay, so we could work out what it means, but we know it's of the same material as the mountain. So this stone must be the kingdom of heaven.
Yes.
The kingdom of heaven is not the king.
Yes, I
Agree with that?
In the sense of the gospel was designed by heaven, was given to us
Amen.
from heaven.
So this is not Jesus,
No.
and this is not Jesus. Jesus owns this, and Jesus owns this. It's what Jesus owns, which is his kingdom. Are we all okay with that? So all I want us to see is when there's this fight, this statue came to this mountain to have a fight with it. How do I know that? How do I know that, Sister Ruth? That the statue came to the mountain to fight?
Because Daniel 11.
Okay, with Daniel 11, it said it there. It said they're all marching and the army is keeping step with him and they're going to the mountain to fight. When they get to the mountain, they have a fight, and who loses? The statue.
Yeah.
And Daniel 2 shows you how he lost. Who was he fighting against?
Against the Most High.
He was fighting against the stone.
So the stone is what, against the gospel, God speaking?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So the stone fights against the statue or this king, and who loses?
The statue.
The statue loses. In fact, in Daniel 2 it says the statue gets destroyed.
Yes.
Are we okay with that? So when the statue got destroyed, what happened to all the pile of rubble, Sister Denise? It all floats away. All of it? Okay, so let's check how much of it gets floated away. We're in verse 35 now, Daniel 2.
Big mountain was built on top of the...
So the story goes, then this stone becomes a big mountain of the earth.
Yeah.
So if you want to say the mountain gets built upon the rubble, I'm okay with that. It doesn't say that in the verses, but that would work. So I want us to see something. Something comes out of the mountain. We agree with that? Does something come out of the statue?
No.
So some people say yes and some people say no. Some people say yes and some people say no. So let's check if something came out of the mountain. We okay with that? So out of the statue. Thank you. Let's check if something comes out of the statue.
There is any connection with that came out from the statue and Psalms when David said that when he see the sanctuary on the jar, he see on the arches of the floor the wicked.
It may well be. I'm not familiar enough with that verse, but it might be connected. Verse 35, Daniel 2. No, we'll go to verse 34. Then thou sawest till a stone was cut out. We're in Daniel 2:34. The stone's cut out of the mountain, which smote the image upon his feet. So it hits the image, hits the statue on the feet. The statue that was made of the feet that were made of iron and clay, and broke them. Verse 35. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together. So it's all broken and becomes like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away. There was no place found for them. And then it's, as you said, the stone becomes a big mountain after that. So Sister Denise, the statue becomes chaff and it's all blown away. Yes? Mm-hmm. Is there anything that's left? Okay, so I want to ask you, if you're okay, if you know what threshing is. You do? Good. Tell me what threshing is.
When you, well, if you do it the way they did it in the old days, where you beat the wheat or whatever on them.
We do it the same way today, just mechanicalized machines, but it's the same.
The wheat from the, what do you call it, the chaff? I don't know what you call it.
Wait, that you said separate wheat from chaff. So is there anything left over then now?
Yes,
Something's left over. What's left over from the statue?
the wheat.
So what comes out of the mountain? Just with the imagery.
Oh, it's little stone.
Stone. What comes out of the statue?
Chaff and wheat.
What comes out? The chaff doesn't come out.
The wheat.
The wheat comes out. So a stone comes out of the mountain and wheat berries, hopefully we all know what wheat berries are. Wheat berries come out of the mountain, out of the statue. You can see that? It's a direct parallel. So if you did that, you know that this stone cannot be Christ because these wheat berries are not... Sorry? Because they're not Satan. If this was Christ, this would have to be Satan. And that would mean Satan would be something that was good. Can you see how easy it is to see this cannot be Christ? This is a symbol of his people, or as our brother said, the gospel. So, in Satan's kingdom, there are two things. 1 and 2. The chaff and the wheat. We know that because it's a threshing floor.
So the wheat means the people who will become to join the 144,000 after Sunday law when the...
Okay, so the verse that you're saying is Revelation 18, verse 4. There was a loud cry that was made. I heard another voice saying, come out of
Babylon.
her, number 1, literal Babylon, mystery Babylon, come out of Babylon, my people. My people are the wheat.
Yeah, I get it.
Get it?
Yeah.
What was the verse?
Oh, it's just here, 18 verse 4. Revelation 18 verse 4. So Revelation 18 verse 4 is here. You can see that imagery. The wheat comes out of the statue. Okay, so let me ask a question. It says, come out of her. Who's her? Babylon, my people. Where were those people?
They are in Babylon. And
They're in Babylon.
Babylon.
So they're in Babylon. Is Babylon God's kingdom or Satan's kingdom?
Satan's kingdom.
So this people, which were God's people, faithful ones, they were in Satan's kingdom.
Yeah, because there is another verse that says that Satan gives his power to the beast. And Revelation, I don't remember, 13.
13 verse 2. The dragon gave his power, seat and great
So
authority.
these people are in that kingdom that beast is talking about that verse.
Yep. So these people are part of Satan's kingdom and they're going to separate. How did they separate out? What causes them to do that? So there's the fight. But my brother used a different language. What causes them to come out? The threshing, that's Daniel 2. We could say 18:4, which is what, Sister Wendy? Which is a message. What message? Quiet one or loud one? Loud message. So it's the loud cry that makes them come out. Or as my brother said, the gospel. It's the gospel that says, come out of Babylon.
Is that the fourth angel message? This one?
It's the repeat of the second. Adventists call it number 4, the fourth angel, but it's not the fourth. It's connected to the repeat of the second. So there's a gospel message that's going to be given. What is the gospel? Just simply, what is the gospel? The good news. The power of God unto salvation, we'll say that. The power of God unto salvation. And if you want to be connected to the power of God unto salvation, what's one of the prerequisites? What do you have to do? You have to be baptized. So baptism is part of the gospel. Okay, so if you want to enter into the gospel, what do you have to do? Prerequisite. You have to be baptized. Okay, so these people give the gospel, so these people are going to get baptized. Okay with that? And they're all part of what kingdom?
The God's people. After they are baptized, yes.
Not after. At the moment, they're all part of
No, they're part of the kingdom of Satan.
Satan's kingdom, and you have to be by the gospel, and you have to be baptized like a new covenant. Okay, so now we're here. How many kingdoms are there? It's one kingdom, the kingdom of God. But there's going to be two parts, and these people are going to be separated. What separates you? The gospel separates you, doesn't it? And the prerequisite of part of the gospel is? You have to be baptized. So, before, when you're in the mountain, what kingdom are you part of? You're still part of God's kingdom. Before baptism, you're part of the kingdom of? Can't be Satan. If you're a Jew, you're part of God's kingdom. You're part of God's kingdom, but you need to have a gospel applied to you. When the gospel is given to you, what do? You come out. You separate. That's what that separation is. It's a message that separates you from the mountain. First thing you need to do is be baptized. And then you're going to enter the kingdom of God. Before baptism, you're part of the kingdom of God. One, the mountain. After baptism, you enter into the kingdom of God. Two, the stone. You okay with that, Sister Effie? Just a bit, that before baptism, if you're a Jew, because we're talking about Jews, you're not part of the kingdom of Satan. You can't be. However bad you are, you're a bad parent, you're not a bad wife, but you're a bad wife, you're a bad child of God, you do idolatry, you do all criminality. You're King Ahaz, and God helps you, and you go to Damascus and say, that's a nice idol, make a copy of it and bring it into the temple. You're Hezekiah, and God saves you from death, and some people come and visit you and you say, look how great a person I am. You don't even mention God. Whatever criminality you do, you're still part of kingdom of heaven until God cuts you off. 721, 723, there's the cutting off of the 10 tribes. And they change their name, don't they? To what? Sorry? Someone said? Samaritans. We can't call them Jews anymore or Israelites. They're going to change kingdoms. They become the kingdom of the Samaritans, the kingdom of Satan, if you like. They demonstrate that because this mountain, Mount Zion, they built a temple on the top of this. And what did the Samaritans do just down the road? Sister Wendy, do you know? Brother David, do you know?
They go to worship there.
And do what? Can't worship without a temple.
Yeah.
So down the road, they find another mountain and they do what? They build a temple, a rival temple. The story of the Samaritan woman and Jesus, when they had that conversation at Jacob's well, what can they just see in the distance? That mountain, and what's on the top of the mountain? That temple. What mountain is it? Gerizim. What did you say? Oh. No, it's Mount Gerizim. Mount Moriah is where Jerusalem's built. So it's Mount Gerizim, and the temple is already being destroyed. So they come out and they're no longer God's people. But so coming back to this story, before baptism, you're an Israelite, you keep hold of the name, and you're part of the kingdom of God. You're this mountain, but you are in apostasy, you're doing lots of things wrong, then what's given to you? The gospel's given to you, and some people come out. They come out and they're symbolized by the stone. So after baptism, they enter into the kingdom of God. It's still the kingdom of God, but I've named it number 2, and it's now the stone.
I'm just trying to understand the application of the story. When you mentioned when Jesus was in the well with the woman, Samaritan woman, that she started a conversation where they should worship. And when Jesus said, because salvation comes from Jewish, so there is connection with what he said to her. And this mountain means like the modern Israel, I mean spiritual Israel.
You can do it with modern or spiritual Israel.
No, this mountain and this prophecy here of Daniel 2 could be applied to the spiritual Israel today, which is the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Are you asking me or telling me?
No, I'm asking you.
And what's the answer?
Because the stone that came out...
What do you think the answer is?
Eh?
What do you think the answer is?
I think it's yes.
I think it is as well. This story is in the feet. It's right at the end of the world, where Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, we're into the papacy now, in the history we're living.
The stone would be the remnant out of the remnant that came out to destroy the statue. Is that correct?
Sounds good to me.
So, but the thing with baptism is that they were already baptized
Let me just
on the spiritual Israel.
just hold that one thought. Just hold that one thought. No, carry on. You carry on. Carry on. Sorry. Finish your thought that you wanted to.
How you apply the parable of the literal Israel, and they have a covenant, you apply that to the baptism, first baptism on the spiritual Israel? Because when the stone is cut, they have to come out and make a new covenant. Is that what you mean?
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question in a moment. I've got a few minutes, so I'll answer your question. Let's just go to John chapter 4. Let's just go to John chapter 4. Because you quoted John chapter 4 a moment ago. So I just want to go there. You said, if I remember what you said properly, you said, Jesus said that you worship on the mountain, on the proper mountain.
Because salvation comes from the Jews.
Good. Because that you said so.
Today salvation comes from the spiritual Israel, which is the Seventh-day Adventists, because the light was given to them.
Good. So let's read from John chapter 4. Verse 15. The woman says, "Give me of this water so that I wouldn't be thirsty." Jesus said to her, "Call your husband." She says, "I don't have a husband." Jesus says, "I agree you don't have a husband. You've had," verse 18, "you've had many husbands before, so you're a woman of who's had problems in your life." Verse 19, the woman saith unto him, "I think you're a prophet." Verse 20, now this is part of what you were saying. "The fathers worshipped in this mountain." What mountain is this, Sister Ruth? Our fathers worshipped, because she's a Samaritan, worshipped on Gerizim, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Now, who says that they're supposed to worship in Jerusalem? Did Jesus say that, or the woman?
No, Jesus said the salvation comes from the Jews.
We're in verse 20.
Where?
Who's speaking in there?
Yeah, on the verse 22.
Okay, so we're going to get to verse 22. We're just in verse 20 at the moment. Just want to know who's speaking. In verse 20, who's speaking in verse 20? The woman is speaking. Are we all okay with that? So, in verse 20, the woman says, we worship on Gerizim, and you Jews say that you have to worship in Jerusalem. Verse 21, Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hour comes when you shall worship God not on your mountain, nor where? Nor at Jerusalem. So none of these mountains are any good anymore to worship God. You have to go somewhere else now. So this mountain here is Mount Zion, the mountain that he's talking about, the Jewish mountain. The Samaritan mountain's over there. He says you can't worship God on this mountain. So there's a problem with the mountain. If there's a problem with the mountain, where do you need to get to? You need to be part of the stone. So this is a reference in Christ's time that this mountain is what? This is the Jewish nation, and the stone is what? The remnant, his disciples. So before baptism, all the disciples are part of this kingdom of God, the mountain. They get baptized. John baptizes them, and they enter into the kingdom of God. They become the stone. And when they become the stone, what did they destroy? What did Paul destroy? If I could take up Paul as an example, what did he destroy? Sister Wendy? Brother James? So Paul goes to the Roman Empire, and everywhere he goes, he causes havoc and trouble. He turns the world upside down. So he steals people from Rome, and they all become Christians. And he got so bad, in Nero's palace, the emperor's palace, he stole people. Not just the servants, even his relatives. If I remember the story, even some of his relatives are persuaded to become Christians. The people in Caesarea, they say, you've almost persuaded us to be Christians. So he's going around smashing up Rome. The same story, but it's 2,000 years ago. So let's just read the rest of the verse that you gave to us. So we read verse 21. You can't worship God in the mountain, the true one, nor in the false. Verse 22. You worship, you don't know what you worship. We know what we worship because salvation is of the Jews. So salvation comes from the Jews. When he says salvation comes from the Jews, is that this one or this one? Is it one or two? Where does salvation come from? When he said from the Jews.
From the Jews because it was given to them, because they were the chosen one.
One or two? Is he talking about the mountain, or is he talking about the stone when he says salvation comes from the Jews? One?
One first.
Two? Sister Effie? One. Sister Ruth?
One.
Brother Douglas? Two? Okay, we shouldn't have two different answers, but we do, because we're seeing it differently. So he says salvation is coming from the Jewish nation, not from what nation? Not from the Samaritan nation. The Samaritans are Gentiles. Where does salvation come? From the statue or from the mountain? Salvation can only come from the mountain. So let me say it in a plain way. Sister Rachel, where does the stone come from? The stone has salvation. Salvation comes from the Jews. When he says the Jews here, this is number one. Kingdom number one. Salvation came from the Jewish nation, but the Jewish nation is going to be destroyed. It's going to be lost. Jesus was a son of the Jewish nation. So in verse 22, when he says, you don't know what you're worshipping, salvation can't come from the Gentiles. It has to come from the Jews. Even though the Jews themselves are about to be lost. So that's what verse 22 is saying. So What was your question before that? I said I was going to answer it.
Yeah, you answered already.
I answered it?
I just trying to apply that to our time.
Okay, so let's apply it to our time. That's what we want to do, apply it to our time. So what I want to do is not apply it to our time, I want to apply it back to time. Do you agree that this story happened 2,000 years ago? The Jewish nation, what gets cut out of this, I'm going to give you three men. John the Baptist, Jesus, and Paul. John the Baptist takes you out of this kingdom and brings you into this kingdom. So he does the initial work of cutting out. In fact, he's got a... Anyway, so he does that first work. Then Jesus, he continues that work and brings you into sanctification. So now you're established as this stone. Paul does what? Paul is this stone that destroys the Roman Empire. So Daniel 2 is not 2,000 years ago, because 2,000 years ago is up here in the legs, and the stone doesn't come until the feet. The feet are not 2,000 years ago. So you can take the story of the end of the world, which is the story of Daniel 2, and you can bring it back to the story of Christ. It works exactly that way, if you're okay with that. So what we can do is take the story of Christ and also bring it back to the end of the world. Because your question was, these are literal Jews in the story of Christ. Then they become spiritual Jews or spiritual Israel, and now they're all baptized. Then you come down to Adventism. So could this mountain be Adventism, but they're already spiritual Israel, they're already baptized. So how can the stone come out and get rebaptized? That's at the heart of your question. So I want to say, these people, God's kingdom, the mountain, from the Jews, are they good or bad? Is the mountain good or is the mountain bad?
No, the mountain is good.
Is it good?
The mountain of God.
Why did these people come out for if it was good?
Oh, because they commit spiritual adultery.
You said that at the beginning.
They apostate.
They're good or bad?
Yeah.
They're bad.
They became bad, yeah. They rebel against God.
The disciples who come out, good or bad?
They're good because
They're good.
God.
At the end of the world, this is the kingdom of heaven, the mountain. Is the mountain good or bad at the end of the world?
It's becoming bad.
It's already bad. Revelation chapter 3,
Apostate position now.
Revelation chapter 3 verse 14. Unto the angel of Laodicea.
Yeah.
So the mountain is what? The mountain is Laodicea. Is a Laodicea good or bad?
Bad.
Anything good to say about Laodicea?
No.
We were told in our Sabbath school that if you're part of Laodicea, you can't go where? Can't go to heaven. Everyone who's Laodicean will die.
God will throw you out.
Yes. He'll throw you out of his mouth.
Yeah.
So what do you have to do? You have to come out of Laodicea. You have to separate.
I have a question with
I'm just going to the model. So you have to separate from that. And what separates you? The gospel separates you. And what's the first step? Baptism. So there's requirement to be rebaptized. And this is Laodicea at the end of the world. What's the three characteristics of Laodicea? You're blind, you're poor, and you're naked. Blind, poor, and naked. Turn to your Bibles. Matthew 15 verse 14. Matthew 15 verse 14. This is the church 2,000 years ago. This is not Laodicea. It's not Adventism. This is God's church in the time of Christ. Matthew 15, 14. Sister Catherine, tell me the condition of the guides, of the leaders. Tell me the condition of the followers. The followers are blind, the leaders are the blind. How many people are blind? Everyone is blind. This is talking about the Jews, the Israelites. So the Israelites are all blind. We agree with that? Go to Matthew chapter 5. We'll go with verse 3, I think it is. Matthew 5 verse 3. It said, blessed are the poor in spirit. Now, poor means poverty. Spirit means spirituality. So if you're poor in spirit, Brother David, it means what?
You're bad, you're blind.
It means you're bad. It means you don't have any spirit.
Yes.
No spirituality. You're poor. So they're poor. So they're blind and poor. This is God's church 2,000 years ago. And if we went to Matthew 23, there's lots of verses for this. What they do is they get plates, bowls, and they wash them. Which parts of the bowls do they wash? They wash the outside. So you've got a cup, and the outside is beautiful, and the inside is all stained. So they get sepulchres, coffin, sepulchres, and what do? They paint them white on the outside, and what they're on the inside? It's all bones. The bones are on the inside. I don't want to go to verse because we're really short on time. What are the bones a symbol of? Hypocrisy and iniquity. So they're dirty on the inside, they're hypocrites, they have iniquity, which is sin. And what do they want to do on the outside? Look clean. This is the story of Adam and Eve. When they're dirty on the inside, what do?
Fix the outside.
They get fig leaves and they make their own clothes. They try to fix the problem. So, what does God say to them? Those clothes are not fit for purpose. You're naked. So I'm going to give you some proper clothes. Those clothes were not fit for use. So Matthew 23, there's lots of verses. I don't give you the verse. So they are naked. The church is poor, blind and naked. What church is that? Laodicea. So the church, when Christ came at his first advent, the mountain, what condition was that in? It was Laodicean. The disciples come out, John baptizes everyone, and what church did they form? This is Laodicea. What church did they become? Ephesus, the first church, don't they? The New Testament church, Christian church, is Ephesus. So the stone is Ephesus. Ephesus and Laodicea. This is in the history of Christ. So at the end of the world, Adventism is Laodicea. When you come out under the gospel message, you become Ephesus. You need to have a change of experience. That's why we talk in a strong way about the necessity of being rebaptized, not just because you did some sin or you had a bad day. I don't mean to trivialize it. Why do you get baptized? Because of a gospel message, a specific gospel message. And the gospel message that takes these people and saves them is the loud cry, Revelation 18 verse 4, or what we would call the third angel's message. So what happens here? It has to be the third angel's message. Or what Ellen White calls, she doesn't call it the third angel's message, she says the message to Laodicea, or the Laodicean message. The message to Laodicea is this, and when it comes to the world, we just call it the loud cry, or the third angel's message. The third angel's message, with 18:4 connected to it, which says, come out of Babylon before it gets destroyed, is a similar message which Ellen White calls the message to Laodicea. Third angel does this work, and the third angel does this work. That's why we talk about baptism. Last question, because we've really run out of time.
I agree, but I'm just trying to understand. For example, how you apply Ephesians 4:5 when it said there is one Lord, one baptism. How you apply this to
So,
the study?
Your question, I can't answer now, but if you see the concept,
Yes.
there are many, many questions that begin to arise, just like the one Lord, one faith, one baptism. All of these need to be understood in this prophetic framework because it affects our salvation. And these are all important questions that we need to understand.
And other thing is that to be part of the stone, you have to be part of the mountain first. You
Yeah.
cannot jump from the world and then join the stone.
Not with this modelling, no.
No.
But,
The only one who can do that is the wick that came out from the statue, no?
yep.
Correct?
So, Cornelius. You remember Peter, he's in Joppa, he has a vision, he's on the top of the house, and this cloth comes down, all unclean animals, and God says, eat them. Do you remember the story? I think it's Acts chapter 10. He says, I don't eat anything unclean. He goes to Cornelius' house, and Cornelius is a Gentile, and what does Cornelius become? Becomes part of the stone. Well, technically he becomes part of this wheat here, but he never joined the mountain first before he joined the church. So simply, the answer to your question is yes, but it's as always, we always have a basic understanding. Then when people ask more and more questions, you have to give a more thorough answer, which becomes a more complex answer, which opens more questions, and it never ends. So I hope, I know you've got lots more questions, but I think everyone's hungry now. I hope that's been of interest with respect to baptism and the necessity of baptism. So, if you just remind us, Brother Douglas, you get baptized to be a marked person, which I guess you're saying you either received the mark of the beast or you received the mark of God, which is the seal of God. So perhaps you'll want to be marked as soon as possible. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness. Each of us, Lord, as we consider our own standing before you, our relationship with you, Father, we know that there are many things that we are doing that we should not be doing. There are many things that we're not doing that we should be doing. May the short study that we've had be one of the means of igniting in our hearts a conviction that things need to change in our lives, that we need to think about who and what we are and what you ask of us. Lord, we live in a land of plenty here in Canada, a land where everything is easily available. We live in comfort, and yet a time is coming when this economic prosperity is going to be taken away from us, and we will have nothing if we don't have Jesus. Before that time comes, it's my prayer that every single one of us makes a decision now to serve Christ in spirit and in truth, that we hear the gospel cry, the message to Laodicea that says, come out of that condition and go into a different one, a condition of success and purity, the condition of Ephesus. May this be our continued experience, and for those of us who have not been baptized, may this be our desire. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.